Oh, hey, in this video, I'm going to show you how I took my old shutters and used some walnut from the shop to create some beautiful new all-natural wooden shutters. Stay tuned. So as with just about any other project that I work on, the first step is to run the rough cut lumber through the joiner. This squares up one face and one edge of each board. Once I have a square face and edge, I take it over to the planer. And once at the planer, I set the thickness of the board and I run it through to clean up the opposing side. Now I've got one edge left on the board, so I'll take it over to the table saw and throw that squared edge from the joiner on the fence to give me a good reference point so that I can square up the opposing edge. Now that I've got all the stock squared up, I'm ready to start gluing up a couple of the panels for the center of the shutters. And I'm going to go ahead and add glue to both edges of the glued up pieces. With a glue up like this, I like to do both edges just to make sure that I've got plenty of squeeze out, plenty of glue in that joint. As I apply the clamps, I want to apply even pressure a little bit at a time on each side, alternating to make sure that I get even clamping pressure. Then I add a couple clamps at the end to make sure that I get a flat surface. And I do this glue up process a total of 8 times to make 8 panels for the rest of the 4 shutters. And here's a shot after I've got all the panels glued up. As you can see, they're scattered all over the shop. Now I've come to the point where I'm ready to start doing a lot of router work. I'm going to start with the rails and stiles. This is a bunch of initial testing with the thickness of the material and the router bit to make sure that I get the perfect fit, and then I can just start tearing through all of the pieces. It's a lot of repetition after this point. Once I'm done with the stile portion, I'm ready to switch out the router bit and start cutting the rails. I get those rails cut, take a look, check it against the stiles, and it looks pretty good. So now I'm ready to head on to cutting the panels on the router table. This is where the glued up panels come into play. After the glue was dry and I took it out of clamps, I got all the panels squared up and ready to run through the router. This raised panel bit is pretty large, so I'm going to take it easy and take light passes on each of the 4 sides of the panel. Every time that I make all 4 passes on all 4 sides, I will push the fence back to cut a little bit deeper until I make it to the bearing. Once I make it to that bearing, I know that I've made it the entire way through the full cutter depth. And something new that I've learned with this project is I like to run the end grain, which is the short pieces, through the router first. This will create tear out on the end of the end grain, but then I can follow it up by running the face grain side, the long side, and it cleans up all that tear out. Now that the panels have been run through the router table, they are cut to their final thickness and edge profile. So now it's time to start sanding, and I used a variety of methods based on the surface. I used the orbital sander for any flat surfaces, and then just a simple sanding disc by hand for any of the contours. This is always the most time-consuming and monotonous task when it comes to building, but it's something that needs to be taken care and done right to get the final product looking great. Now I'm ready to convert my sanding benchtop to the gluing benchtop. I take a little bit of construction paper, spread it over, and bring all the pieces over for dry fitting and eventually gluing. I start by putting a dab of glue in each of the stiles, and I want to make sure that there's no squeeze out, so I don't want to get too much glue in there. I just want enough to hold. And then I'm going to put some space balls in one side of the rail and stiles. This helps to ensure even spacing for the panels within the rails and stiles, as well as allowing those panels to expand and contract during the winter and summer seasons. As I start to get the stiles glued to the rails, I'll start to just work my way from one end to the other, getting the stile on the top in, then the panel, then the center stile, bottom panel, and then the bottom stile. As I'm getting ready to clamp this up, I want to make sure that everything is square. And once again, I want to make sure that I apply even clamping pressure. And now I hope to see just a small amount of squeeze out. This tells me that I've got a nice tight fit. After the final assembly is glued up and dried, I take it out and give it a nice light sanding. Then I'm ready to start drilling mounting holes. For this, I'll use a 3/8 inch Forstner bit. That corresponds to the 3/8 inch button style plugs that I've got. After I've got the countersunk holes drilled, I can go ahead and reference the center of that Forstner bit to drill through holes for the screws. Now I'm to the point where I'm ready to finish, but first I need to clean all of the surfaces. So first I blow everything off with an air hose, and then I take some acetone and lightly pass through the entire project just to make sure that all the dust and grime is gone. Once all the pieces have dried from the acetone, I'm ready to apply the finish. And for this project, I decided to use a new product from Rubio Monocoat called DuraGrit. This is a specially formulated finish to be used on the exterior. That's perfect for my application, obviously, since these shutters are going to be on the outside of the front of my house. There's going to be a lot of UV rays hitting this. The darker pigments within this product should help to reflect the UV rays away, keeping the finish from breaking down. The other advantage is this is a penetrating oil type finish instead of a film finish. It theoretically will not break down, it'll just fade over time, instead of using a film finish which in time will break down, chip, crack, and look generally worse than sort of just a fading type finish. I'm hoping that every handful of years, maybe 5 years or so, I can just recoat these and they'll look good as new. It says to simply brush on and use a liberal amount to keep a wet edge. As I first start to apply it, it really doesn't look that great. There's a lot of brush strokes, but I sort of expected this. I'm hoping that once it dries, the oil-based nature of this product will start to level out. Here's a close-up of the application, and as you can see quite a few brush strokes. Maybe I was going a little bit too hard on the brush, I don't know, but it did show quite a few. As it started to dry, the brush strokes did level out a bit, but the final product did still have a few brush strokes.
So here they are, the shutters with the new Rubio DuraGrit. They've been up for about a week now. Obviously they're holding up well. It's only been a week, but I hope that this helps with the pigments inside that Rubio DuraCoat to really reflect all of the UV rays away from this thing and keep it from rotting. Pretty covered with the roof overhang. It just got done raining today. We got about a couple inches, and these things are still dry. So I'm not too worried about rain, really worried more about the sun exposure and UV light that hit these things. Now, as I said in the video, I'm not wild about the finish that this came out with, and I think it may have been some of my user error instead of the actual DuraGrit itself. I don't know if anybody else has used this. I know that it just came out, so if anybody else has used it, had similar results, had different results, let me know. A before and after of what the shutters looked before and what they look like after. And I hope you like this video. In the coming videos, I'm getting ready to get started on the door so that I can have a door that somewhat matches the shutters in terms of a natural Cape Cod walnut look. Please subscribe. I'm trying to do these videos a little bit more often. It's hard to do with a full-time job and trying to build things, but I'm really trying to get after it. So if you could, like this video, subscribe, etc. See ya.